It's official. The Senate has been sworn in as the jury in the case against President Trump. And in case you missed it, the Democrats had a debate on Tuesday night. We'll talk about that later in the program, and I want to show you a clip that is going to have you as worried as it has me. I'm Randall Terry, and this is Voice of Resistance. It's obscene. The entire situation is obscene. Nancy Pelosi, in case you missed it, was signing the articles of impeachment to be delivered to the Senate one letter at a time, using pen after pen after pen. And it wasn't for the sake of drama. You guessed it. It was so that she could hand the pens out to the sharks in the water, passing them around like party favors, according to one talk show host I listened to. There it is, your little memorabilia from the scam trial. And then the Chief Justice of the United States of America was escorted by senators from both parties into the U.S. Senate chamber, where he took the oath of office to preside over the trial of President Trump. Once he took the oath of office, he administered the oath of office to all of the senators in the chamber, who now will serve as the jury. In case you did not remember, a 2/3 majority will be required to convict and remove the President of the United States. Now, I'm going to make one statement that I'm prepared to fight on this hill. Let's assume for a minute that the president did do a quid pro quo. And I don't mean an illegal one. Let's assume that the President of the United States said, hey, we want you guys to finish the investigation that you started. And we are going to give you a whole bunch of money. But we want to know that we are not giving money to a corrupt government in a way that you can show that you have broken with the corruption of the past and are therefore worthy of our taxpayers' money, is that you continue on with a criminal investigation, if one existed before, prior to Joe Biden shaking down your government and demanding that the prosecutor be fired. The President of the United States is the boss of the Department of Justice. He's the boss of the Attorney General. And that way, it makes him the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. If crimes were committed in the Ukraine, it is the president's duty to have those crimes ferreted out and to request of the government of Ukraine that those crimes, if there were crimes committed, that they at least be investigated. And we have a treaty with Ukraine to that exact end. Everybody knows that Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries in the world after the breakup of the Soviet Union. So if the president had said, listen, we know that somehow the Ukrainians were involved in the Russian hoax, in the fake dossier. Joe Biden is on tape bragging that he caused a prosecutor to be fired and he was withholding $1 billion. If you've been looking into this, we ask you that you continue. The American people have a right to know. Joe Biden as a presidential candidate is not a threat to Donald J. Trump, I promise you, and you're going to see later in the program exactly why. So if, in the worst case scenario, what the president did is what I just suggested, it's not an impeachable offense. Because what it would mean is that if you're a politician like Joe Biden, you can commit a crime. You can shake down another government and no one can investigate you. Certainly not the chief law enforcement officer of the country. The fact that you're now a candidate provides you the cover that you need so that you can say, hey, I can do what I want, and you can't investigate me because I'm your political opponent. So all I have to do is run for office. If I've done something wrong and then it's hands off me, does anyone else see the insanity of this? All right. When I come back from this break, I'm going to play for you the president's press conference from yesterday because most major media outlets aren't going to play it, and I'm going to play it for you. And then in the last segment, a clip of Joe Biden that you are going to want to see. I promise you. Don't go away. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. The president took some time when he was meeting with young people yesterday to answer questions from the press. Jim Acosta of CNN was allowed to ask the first question. The president chose that man on purpose, believe me. So here's the first half of the press conference.
What is your response to Lev Parnas, who says that your efforts in Ukraine were all about 2020? You just wanted Joe Biden out. What's your response?
Well, I don't know him. I don't know Parnas, other than I guess I had pictures taken, which I do with thousands of people, including people today that I didn't meet, but just met him. I don't know him at all. Don't know what he's about. Don't know where he comes from. Know nothing about him. I can only tell you this thing is a big hoax. It's a big hoax. We call it, this is the current hoax. We've gone through the Russian witch hunt. We've gone through a lot of them, from probably before I came down the escalator, but certainly since I came down the escalator. You take a look at what's happened. And in the meantime, our country, it doesn't matter what he's trying to probably make a deal for himself. I don't even know who this man is, other than I guess he attended fundraisers, so I take a picture with him. I'm in a room, I take pictures with people. I take thousands and thousands of pictures with people all the time. Thousands during the course of a year. And oftentimes I'll be taking a picture with somebody, I'll say, I wonder what newspaper that one's going to appear in. No, I don't know him. Perhaps he's a fine man, perhaps he's not. I know nothing about him. But I can tell you this.
More than just taking pictures with the president. He says that
I don't know him. I don't believe I've ever spoken to him.
On the phone with Giuliani, and he said,
I don't believe I've ever spoken to him. I meet thousands of people. I meet thousands and thousands of people as president. I take thousands of pictures, and I do it openly and I do it gladly. And then if I have a picture where I'm standing with somebody at a fundraiser, like I believe I saw a picture with this man, but I don't know him. I had never had a conversation that I remember with him. Certainly, let me just tell you, you just have to take a look at the polls. Quiet. You just have to take a look at the pictures. You just have to take a look at the polls. You see, I don't need anybody's help. We're doing phenomenally well. The economy is the best it's ever been. We have never had an economy like this in history. We just made the 2 best trade deals in the history of our country. We are doing well. I don't need the help of a man that I never met before, other than perhaps taking a picture at a fundraiser or something, if that's where it was taken.
Are you still going to Davos? And if you are, what's the message you want to send?
I will probably be going to Davos. I've been invited. We have tremendous world leaders, and we also have the great business leaders, and we want those business leaders all to come to the United States. Some of the businesses left the United States because they were disgusted with what happened, and now they're all coming back. We are booming. Our country's the hottest country anywhere in the world. There's nothing even close. Every world leader sees me, they say, what have you done? This is the most incredible thing that we've ever seen. I understand the stock market today broke 29,000. When I came in, it was a fraction of that. It was a number that, frankly, would have gone, and it would have been cut in half had the other person or the other party won. The number would have been cut in half. We are doing so well, and I want to get more. We have tremendous room for growth in our country in terms of the economy. We have tremendous, powerful room for growth. So I'm going to be going to Davos. I'll be meeting the biggest business leaders in the world, getting them to come here. I'll also be meeting with foreign leaders, okay?
Mr. President, you're talking about prayer and faith today. What's your message to the millions of Catholics in the United States? Why should they vote for you in the upcoming election? Catholics.
Well, I have a great relationship with Catholics. I've done so much for Catholics. You take a look at the abortion issue. You take a look at many of the issues, Mexico City. You take a look at so many of the different issues. My relationship with Catholics and the Catholic Church has been very, very good, as you know very well. Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Mr. President, Rudy Giuliani wrote a letter to Zelensky requesting a private meeting, and he said it was in his capacity as private counsel to President Donald J. Trump. This was before the inauguration. Did you authorize him to write that letter, and what was your understanding of what the meeting was supposed to be about?
Well, I don't know anything about the letter, but certainly Rudy is one of the great crime fighters in the history of our country. He's certainly probably the best over the last 50 years. He was also the greatest mayor in the history of the city of New York. I think Rudy was truly an outstanding mayor. It's an example, his endorsement of Bloomberg got Bloomberg elected. He wouldn't have even been mayor. But Rudy was the greatest crime fighter, and Rudy is somebody that, frankly, having him on my side was a great honor for me, and it has been a great honor for me. Rudy Giuliani did a phenomenal job over a long period of time in fighting crime. And frankly, he's a very legitimate guy, a very straight shooter. I didn't know about a specific letter, but if he wrote a letter, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Rudy was always in. It was very important to Rudy that I be a great president, and that's okay with me. It was very important to a lot of people because our country was going to hell, and now our country's on a path that we haven't seen in decades and decades. We've never done better. Go ahead. No, not you. Go ahead.
I'm letting you hear from the president because if you're watching most of the major networks in the country, they're not going to let you hear from the president. That's part of what I intend to do here as a broadcaster. I'll be right back with the second half. Don't go away.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. Its teachings are good and peaceful. And those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah.
We have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace.
Islam is a religion of peace. They are not Muslims, they are monsters.
We've been told that Muslim terrorists have hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam. But Islamic art and literature tell a very different story. To know the truth, we only have to study the narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad, in his own words. And here's the second half of the president's press conference, and think through how great this country is doing financially right now and how much the Democrat machine hates him for it. This impeachment, friends, it's about politics. It's about them wanting him to lose the White House. Listen to the president speak for himself.
No, not you. Go ahead.
The trial starting next week. What's your view on how long it should take?
Well, I think it should go very quickly. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Everybody knows that. It's a complete hoax. The whole thing with Ukraine. So you have a perfect phone call. This is a call, fortunately, it was actually 2 phone calls. You people don't report that. There were 2 calls. They were both perfect calls. In fact, probably among the nicest calls I've ever made to foreign leaders. Now, so you have these perfect calls, and everybody says it now. Before they knew they were so good, because fortunately they were transcribed, you had other people saying terrible things about the calls. You had a fake whistleblower that wrote a report that bore no relationship to what was said. Everything was false. You have now the Ukrainian president and the foreign minister of Ukraine saying there was nothing done wrong. In fact, they said there was absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Everything was perfect, and they impeach. It's totally partisan. We had 195 to nothing Republican votes. I guess we got a Democrat actually came over to the Republican side. We had 195 to nothing. This is a hoax. It's a shame. I did the biggest deal ever done in the history of our country yesterday in terms of trade, and probably other things too, if you think about it, the deal with China. And that was the second story to a total hoax. Today we just had passed the USMCA. It's going to take the place of NAFTA, which was a terrible deal. And the USMCA will probably be second to this witch hunt hoax, which hopefully everyone knows is not going anywhere. There was nothing done wrong. This was a perfect phone call. Think of it. The President of the United States, who's led the greatest growth, the greatest economic revival of any country anywhere in the world, is the United States, as big as it is. We're doing better than any other country by far. Our unemployment numbers are the best they've been in over 50 years. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, unemployment, the best in the history of our country. And I've got to go through a hoax, a phony hoax, put out by the Democrats so they can try and win an election that hopefully they're not going to win. It was put out for purposes of winning an election. Our country is doing great. Our country has never done better. So they figured the only thing they can do, they failed on the Mueller report. That was a bomb. After 2.5 years, they failed. Now they said, what can we do? And they picked up a phone call that was perfect. But they didn't know it was perfect. They only found out later. They made up a phone call. What they did, look, what they did. You have a corrupt person. He's a corrupt politician named Adam Schiff. And he made up a phone call. He went out, you'll hear about this as you grow older. He went out and he said things that he said quid pro quo 8 times. It was no times. He said, don't call me, I'll call you. That's a mob statement. I never said that. Fortunately, I released the transcript of the call. The transcript was perfectly accurate. And now everybody agrees because it went through a lot and they said, well, could you add one word here? Or Lieutenant Colonel said, well, I think they should add, they added the word. Everyone agrees the transcript is perfecto, done by total professionals, right? But I released that after they had done these fraudulent acts. And you get impeached on this. We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have the highest job numbers today. It was just announced. We have more people working in the United States than ever before in the history of our country, almost 160 million people. We're doing an incredible job. And for absolutely no reason, I got impeached. It's a disgrace and it's a hoax. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, there you have it, friends. I'm going to be right back and play a clip for you of Joe Biden. You're not going to want to miss this. Don't go away. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life. Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced. Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Introducing Roxy Guitar. If you're a guitar or bass player, whether you play acoustic or electric, check out Roxy Guitar. I've been playing for over 40 years and seen guitar stores all over America. I've never seen a store like Roxy Guitar. Roxy Guitar has over 700 guitars in stock, over 1,500 pedals, over 200 amps. For the beginner or price-conscious buyer, there's Michael Kelly guitars. For the serious player or professional, Roxy Guitar has the finest selection of guitar lines I've ever seen. You know I love Warrior guitars. Roxy Guitar has over 100 Warriors in stock. They have Heritage, G&L, Gretsch, John Sears, BC Rich, Duesenberg, Dean, legendary guitars at great prices, including pre-owned Gibsons, Fenders, and more. Let them know you heard about Roxy Guitar from Randall Terry and receive 10% or more off your purchase on select items. Go to roxyguitar.com. Well, in the middle of all of this impeachment insanity, the Democrats are about ready to have their first primary. It's the Iowa caucus coming up on February 3rd, and then a week later, we've got the New Hampshire primary. The Democrats held their final debate before the Iowa caucus on Tuesday night, and I watched the entire debate, as I should do as a broadcaster. And besides the normal lunacy of everyone running as far to the left as they can and making promises, many of them, that they simply cannot keep, something else stuck out to me. Now, if you're a regular viewer of this show, you know that my prediction is that Joe Biden is going to win the nomination and Pete Buttigieg will be tapped by him as his running mate. That's what I think is going to happen. I know that the odds are very small. That's just my gut instinct. But this really is Biden's to lose. Now, Bernie is ahead in Iowa, but Biden has a crushing lead in South Carolina. So it looks like Biden is ahead in New Hampshire by a whisker and ahead by a whisker in Nevada. And by the way, as I mentioned on Tuesday's program, the most recent poll shows Biden ahead by a little bit in Iowa. So I don't know how this is going to play out, but I still think it's Biden's primary to lose. Until Tuesday night, I'm watching this, and after the second time of what I'm about to show you, I said to my son, are you seeing this? Because all my boys were watching it. And I said, are you watching this? Do you see what is happening to him? Biden was losing it. He was losing his place in his speech, in his syntax, over and over. So I'm watching this, and I said, somebody's going to do a montage. Somebody is going to do a montage of Biden losing his grip on his speech. And then I found it yesterday. So I'm going to play it for you. And you tell me, does this look like a man who was playing with all his faculties? There you go.
And I think it's a mistake to pull out the small number of troops. The reason he made the strike was because our embassies were about to be bombed. I would not meet with absent preconditions instead of poking our eye and poking our finger in the eye of all our friends by stealing our intellectual property, their corporate state system to our significant disadvantage of anyone running up here in this race. Reduce the cost of drug prices. It allows all the drug companies it allows you to Medicare to negotiate. It should be free universal infant care, but here's the deal. Over 500 miles a day, 250 miles a day. There's no choice but for Nancy Pelosi that I think about the American people. I headed up the Recovery Act, which put more money into moving away from fossil fuels to solar and wind energy. If the vast majority believe their children will never reach the stage that they've reached in economic security.
Whoa. Even CNN, when it was over, who hosted the debate, one of their talking heads afterwards said Biden looked horrible. And that's what they meant. Biden's closing statement was pretty strong, but that was a stump speech. Answering questions, he was choking left and right, losing his place, losing his train of thought. He looked horrible. Bernie Sanders looked commanding on that stage. If you want to just look at who's a commanding left-wing pseudo-communist presence running for president, it was Bernie. I don't know, people. I don't know. If I was advising Joe Biden, which I'm not, I would say to him, don't answer questions. Stay as far to the public as you possibly can. Go greet, shake hands, but don't make public speeches because you're not firing on all cylinders, buddy. And if you want to win this election, you better keep some of that mumbling to yourself. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week talking about the trial of the president.